Alright, so today we're changing the rear brakes on the 68 Mercedes. These are the old brakes that have been sitting on there for who knows how long. They are, if you can see closely, these are ATE calipers. I guess they came on with ATE or Girling calipers. Girling, however it's pronounced. So it's pretty easy. So I'm going to change the pads. I'm also going to replace all this hardware that's in here, as well as the rotor. So if we're changing the pads, there's these two pins that the brake pads slide on. We're just going to knock those out. I say we, it's only me, so. But you're along for the ride. So I'm going to knock out those pins. This hardware just kind of keeps tension on the pads and the hardware. I got my handy brake clean to hopefully clean up some of the grime and brake dust. So I'll knock out these pins, then the pads should be able to slide out. I'm guessing that they're pretty nasty, so they're going to be hard to pull out. You compress the piston back in a little bit after you crack open the master cylinder, the cap on it. And then I assume I got to take this bolt off to take the rotor off. I think I'll double check and make sure. And then I have, which probably can't see that far. I got a wheel stud conversion kit to put on because these use wheel bolts. So trying to line up the wheel and then put in the bolts is kind of annoying. But also, because of the new wheels, I got 16-inch wheels. They don't fit perfectly around the center bore. They kind of have these little indentations, so they don't clear it. I could either grind out the wheel to make it fit, or I got like a 5mm spacer that gives it just enough so that it will clear without hitting those little tabs on the inside of the center bore of the wheel. So, and then having the wheel studs helps line all of those things up and makes putting the wheels on and off a little bit easier. But looking through, there's some significant rust damage. But, I mean, it's not the most structural thing. It's where the bump stop is. So that's where that limits the suspension up travel. So we hit a bad bump and we hit the bump stop, and that could rip some of the stuff up. It is near where the spring attaches, though, so it's hard to say how really bad it is. The exhaust is super rusty, too. But, I don't know. I'll get it running and see how bad it does. Also, this is the sway bar, which, I mean, a lot of sway bars are round, and the way a sway bar works is it's twisting torsion force. But this is a flat bar, which actually gives a little bit more room. And since all the force is this way, that's all it really needs to resist. Oh, we got a little Mercedes part number right there. It's actually somewhat more efficient, even though it's flimsy this way, but it's not trying to resist force in and out. That's all determined by your control arms and everything. A sway bar just try and resist the twisting forces from one side to the other. So, but it's probably, yeah, I can feel it. It's round on this part, but then it turns into a flat bar, which is flimsy this way, but has what we call moment of inertia in this way. It's kind of like how a I-beam works. The center of the I-beam is skinny and tall because it's harder to bend something this way, but it's not very resistant this way. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't need to. So those Germans, always thinking about stuff. Alright, so I knocked those pins out. Got that hardware, which then broke as soon as the pins came out. Basically, the punch didn't work very well. I used something like one of these. This is a kit that I have of drifts and punches that I bought from Harbor Freight, nice and cheap. This one, if you can See, it has a flat tip, so you just hammer it and it pushes the pin all the way through, even though it's super rusty and gross. The pads will not come out though. I got this one to move a little bit. This one's pretty much stuck. I took that bolt out. I'm going to remove the caliper, that way I can try and get the pads off and they're not stuck to the rotor, even though this rotor's turned because I've pushed the car. But one of the things, if I can get it to show on this car, all the bolts on the suspension have these little tabs. I may have shown this in another video. They all have these little tabs, which is great for the reliability. You don't have to worry about the bolts backing out, but it's super annoying to work on because I gotta take a screwdriver or pry bar and pry that tab down. That way I can get a socket on, and that way the bolt will actually turn. So it's great for making the car last forever. You don't have to worry about your bolts backing out. However, it's very annoying to work on the car. So that's the next step. Alright, I got sad news. I ordered the wrong hardware kit. I guess I looked it up, and that's why I looked up before I started putting it all back together, because I was like, this doesn't look right. Ordered the hardware kit for the Girling calipers, not the ATE calipers. So these ones kind of have this little spring-loaded ball at the end that puts the tension on. These are just tapered at the end, and then they have little clips to hold them in place. But they are the wrong ones, even though this thing looks the same. So I just ordered new ones on Amazon. They'll be here in a few days, but in the meantime, I guess I'll put the rotor on and just put the pads in loose and wait for the hardware to show up. And then I guess move on to the front. Although, no, I don't have the front rotors yet, because those are like special orders, so I'll just do what I can. Alright, well that about does it for what I can do tonight, at least on this corner. The rotor's on. An important thing, always remember, and I see this in every video is pointed out, make sure that you use brake clean on the surface, because when they ship these, they put it like a grease wax that helps prevent from rusting while it's in transportation or sitting on the shelf somewhere for who knows how long, because how many people order new brake rotors for the 68 Mercedes? Not many. And then I got these the wheel studs in. But first off, these rotors, they're just plain regular rotors. I got them off of Rock Auto. They're made by a company called Centric. And actually, if you look into it, the company, Centric is like a subsidiary of the same company that makes StopTech. So the packaging is pretty similar. I've used StopTech rotors and pads and everything in the past, and they've been pretty good. Haven't had any complaints on it. Obviously, when I actually drive this, I'll see how well it does, although I don't really have much of a baseline to compare from because I've never driven this car before. But these rotors are nice because the hat is painted. I like that. If I actually cared about this car and was trying to make it look nice, the fact that the hat is already painted makes really makes it stand out. A lot of times when you have nice wheels on there, then you got an ugly rotor behind there, or people just paint their calipers red and then those turn black and look ugly too. But this is nice, decent quality. And then this wheel stud kit, I got it from a company called Motorsport Hardware. I found a whole kit with the lug nuts, and they were on clearance for $80 and just the right size that I needed. The right thread pitch and everything like that. They seem to be pretty good. Obviously, I'll find out when I'm actually changing wheels and everything like that. But so far, I put a little Loctite on them, install them. They've got these Allens on the end, so you don't have to try and they're not hard to install. They're really easy to put in. But they seem pretty good quality, and it was a reasonable price. Even the ones that aren't clearance were a decent price with the lug nuts, because sometimes people pay a lot of money just for lug nuts. But these ones were a decent price, and lug nuts weren't that much more, so I got those on there. I got, because it's Mercedes. Mercedes uses, most companies I think use like a tapered fit. The Mercedes, where'd it go? I have to find the lug nut. But they use the ball taper, which I've never owned a car with that before. So that's a little bit different, but that's something you got to pay attention to. And the new wheels that I got are from a Mercedes, so it's based off of the wheel, not the necessarily the car. If I can reach it. Yeah, so if you can see, it's kind of a ball taper rather than like a straight angled taper. So I got new lug nuts to go on there. And get rid of all of these 4 flat tires that who knows what the history is on them. But yeah. So until the hardware comes in for this, and until I get my rotors in for the front, because the front, it's a whole ordeal, so I'm going to take my time with that. I don't want to take it all apart until I have the right hardware. At least I think I have the right hardware. I actually have the brake hardware and I have the pads. I just need the rotors is all I need. But you have to, like, on the front, you have to take it out and it comes out with the bearing and everything like that. So that's it for this corner tonight.